Hello guys, my name is Raul Cadalzo. I will be your instructor for Module 5. So for the lesson for Module 5 is regarding MIT App Inventor components and their properties. So now, what are the objectives for this module? So at the end of this module, you should be able to learn the different types of MIT App Inventor components and their properties. Learn how to use components and modify its available properties. Understand the importance of using components in creating a mobile application. To develop a simple registration or login application that will be storing data from via Firebase from user inputs. So, components. So what are components? Components are pieces of your application that do actions for you. So this could be buttons, or this could be images, or this could be the different type of sensors that you're using for your mobile application. So basically, your mobile application is composed of different type of components that will have specific functions that the designer or the programmer will be intending them to do. So components are dragged from the components palette and are placed on your phone. So user can then change properties of these components such as color, font, and speed. So now let's proceed to your MIT App Inventor. So this is your screen for the mobile application development for MIT App Inventor. So first is where can we see your components. So your components are placed on the left side of your screen. So this is your palette. Okay, so under your palette you have different type of categories for your components. So let's say for example you have user interface. These are the different types of user interface components that you can use. Now, so let's say for example, we'll be using a button. So if you want to use a component, what you'll do is you need to drag that component onto the mobile phone. So let's say for example, I've dragged a text or I've dragged a button. Okay, so you'll be seeing the component in your screen. Okay, so this is the palette. You've dragged your button in here. On the right side of your screen, you will be seeing the different types, or you'll be seeing all the components that you place on your mobile application. Now, so let's say for example, we've dragged a button. Okay, so you'll be seeing button 1 in here. So these are the existing components that you have on your mobile application, and the rightmost side of your screen, you'll be seeing your properties. So let's say for example, you have your buttons. These are the different properties that you can play or you can use to modify your button. Right? Now, so the slider view on the left hand side of your component is the component palette. So this palette contains different drawers such as your user interface, maps, sensors, etc., which hold all the components. Regarding components, we have two main types for your components. That will be the visible and non-visible components. So let's proceed. So what is a visible component? Visible components are components that you can see on your mobile application. Okay, so these are buttons, text boxes, labels, etc., etc. Most of the time when we say visible components, we usually refer to the components that fall under user interface. Everything that you see on your mobile application, okay, will fall under visible components. Then we also have your non-visible components, such as the accelerometer. Okay, we also have sound, orientation sensor. Okay, these three are not seen, but they are part. Okay, or they are not part of the user interface, but okay, they provide access to built-in functions. Let's say, for example, accelerometer. So this is a built-in sensor that you have on your mobile application. Basically, you won't be seeing it on your user interface or on your screen, but it functions within the mobile application. Properties. So every component is characterized by various components that stores values to define their current state. So you can specify the initial state of a component in the properties pane of the designer window. So what are properties? So properties are basically basic configurations that you can use for your you can use to modify your components. So let's say for example, for button, we have um, different types of components that you can use. Let's say for example, okay, in here you have your background color enabled, okay, you have your font bold, font italic, you have your font size, okay, etc., etc. So let's say for example, we want to change the background color of your button. So by default, okay, you have these different types of colors. So you have black, blue, cyan, etc., etc. Now, so let's try to change the background color to green. Okay, so what you'll be seeing is there will be a change in the characteristic of your button. So from previously that you have your button that has a white color, now you can modify it. So by changing its properties. Okay, so let's say for example, let's modify the height and width of your button. So in here, when you select height by default, okay, it's in automatic. So meaning the initial state of the button is what will be followed when you drag it on your mobile application, but you can modify it. So let's say for example, you can change the height of your button using the pixels or percent. Okay, so let's say for example, we'll be modifying the height of your button. So instead of using automatic, we'll be changing it to percent. So let's say for example, we want to change the size of your or the height of your button from automatic to 20%, then you click OK, then you'll see, okay, that your button will be adjusting. So basically, the properties, you can use this to modify, okay, the components that you want to use. So we have different types of properties for your components. So for the button, you have your background color, okay, you have your height and width, you have your font size. So when we say font size, basically what this will be doing is it will be, or you can control the size of the text that the button has. So let's say for example, from 14 we'll be changing it to 20. Okay, so you'll see we'll be having a bigger text. Now what if you want to change the label or the text that the button has? So what you're going to do is you'll be proceeding in here. So we have text. So by default, it's text for button 1. Now let's say for example, we'll be changing this to click me. Press enter, then you'll see that the text will be updated on your button. So these are the different properties that you have. So each of these components will have different types of properties depending on the configurations that the MIT App Inventor allows them to do. So these blocks change the text of label to say hello world and change the color to what of that text to purple. So in properties, guys, you can change the properties using this properties panel, or you can also use the blocks, okay, to modify some properties. So let's say for example, we'll be proceeding to blocks, okay. So I have my button 1 in here. So I'll be selecting button 1. You'll be seeing different types of blocks, okay, in here. So you can also use these blocks to modify some of the um, properties of your button. So let's say for example, you can set button 1 with percent, okay. So okay, let's continue. Component reference. So for component reference, first is we have different types of component classifications. So your components will be divided into several classifications or categories. These are the different types of user interface components that you can use for MIT App Inventor. So we have user interface components, layout components, media components, drawing and animation components, map components, sensor components, social components, storage components, connectivity components, Lego Mindstorms components, and experimental components. Under these classifications, we have tons of components under them. So, but we'll be listing or we'll be studying those components that you will be probably using, right, for developing a simple application. So we'll be starting with the user interface component. So MITF Inventor provides a variety of pre-built user interface components such as structured layouts and UI components that allows you to build the graphical user interface for your mobile application. So under user interface components, okay, these are the different components that we have. You have your buttons, you have your checkbox, you have your date picker, image, labels. Okay. So for buttons, these are components that have the ability to detect clicks. Checkbox components can detect user taps and change their Boolean state in response. So in a checkbox, the Boolean state that we're referring here is if the checkbox is either clicked or not. You also have your date picker, so it is a button that is when clicked, launches a pop-up dialog to allow the user to select a date on the Gregorian calendar. So most of the time, we'll be seeing this date picker, okay, in registration forms that will be asking for your birthday, right? We also have an image. It is a component that is used for displaying images and basic animations for your mobile application. Now, we also have labels. Labels are components used to show text. Okay, so let's say if you want to add text for your mobile application, you'll be using labels as your component. We also have your list picker. So it is a button when clicked on displays a list of text for the user to choose among two. Okay. Then we also have your list view. It is a component that allows you to place a list of text elements in your screen to display. So what's the difference between the list picker and list view? For list view, you're only listing all your components. Okay, so let's say for example, you want to list different kinds of fruits that you want. Okay, so you'll be using this one. But if you want to select a particular item within that list, okay, we'll be using your list picker. Then we also have your notifier. It is a component that displays alert message and creates Android log entries through an assortment of methods. We also have your password text box. So in a password text box component, it hides the text that has been typed. Okay, so we're using this password text box to hide your password for security purposes while typing it. We also have our slider. It is a progress bar that adds a draggable tab. As the slider tab is dragged, it will trigger the position change event, reporting the position of the slider tab. So we can also use this, okay, to provide percentages or to provide number. Okay. We also have your spinner. It is a component that displays a dialog with a list of elements. Okay. We also have your switch. It is a component that can detect user taps and can change their Boolean state in response. So we also have your text box. It is a component that allows users to enter text in a text box component. Then we also have your time picker. So it is a button when clicked on opens a dialog to allow the user to select time. So let's say for example, most of the time we'll be seeing this time picker in your alarm clocks. Okay. Then we also have your web viewer. It is a component for viewing web pages. Okay, so let's say for example, you want to view web pages using your mobile application, you can do it using your web viewer. So let's check the actual user interfaces components that we have. So let's say for example, in here, I previously added the button in here. So for now, I'll be deleting it. I'll be selecting the component here in the component list. Then I'll be deleting it. So let's say for example, we have the different types of user interfaces components in here. So under user interfaces or under the components palette, you'll see the user interface drawer. So you have your button, checkbox, the picker, image, the speaker, notifier, password text box, slider, up until onto your web viewer. So these are the different types of components that you can use most of the time to build the graphical user interface of your mobile application. So everything or any component that is under the user interface, you can drag it, and you'll be seeing it on the screen of your mobile application aside from the I think everything is a visible component. So for now, let's say for example, you want to create a simple mobile application that will have checkboxes. All you need to do is to drag the checkbox in here. Okay, drag another checkbox. You can also add a new button. Okay. Then you also have let's say a label. Okay, so we'll be adding labels in here and labels in here. So that's how you use your components. All you need to do is drag them onto your mobile application. Now, so let's say for example, we want to modify your components. So let's say for example, for your text for checkbox 1, okay, you want to change the label. So all you need to do is go to the text, then change this. So let's say for example, option 1. We'll be adding the text of option 1 for your checkbox. Once you press enter, the text that is added here will be reflected onto your checkbox. Okay. You can also select the components using this component list. So let's say for example, you have your checkbox 1 in here, you have the label 1, you have your checkbox 2. So let's say for example, I'll be changing text for checkbox 2. I'll be changing it to option 2. Okay. Now, you can also change the labels that we've added. So as you can see in our component list, you have your label 1 and label 2. Okay. So you can change it using this text. So let's say for example, sample label 1. Press enter, then it will be updated in here. Okay, so let's say for example, we want to change the font style. We want to make it bold. Okay, so we'll be selecting font bold. So you'll see it will be reflected on your mobile application. Now, let's create some modifications for label 2. We'll also be changing will be changing its font size. So let's say from 40, we'll be changing it to 32. Okay. Then aside from that, we want to make it italic. So I'll be checking this one. Okay. Now, aside from that, you also have your text color. Let's say, for example, you'll be changing the text color from the default black to blue. All you need to do is select a color. Okay. You also have the option to hide different types of components. So let's say, for example, you want to hide the label 2. All you need to do is to uncheck the visible. So as you can see, it will be hidden away from the mobile application. So these are the different types of components on the user interface. Now, so let's say for example, this is the page view. Okay. Let's say we want to add another, or for now, I'll be deleting these components. So next thing that I'll be doing is I'll be adding, let's say for example, a list picker. So what is a list picker? So this type of component will allow you to select options from list. So how do you do that? First, what you're going to do is you need to provide elements from string. So what is these elements for string? You'll be adding the different choices that you want for this list picker. So let's say for example, I'll be listing down fruits, apple, mango, and banana. I'll press enter. Okay. So as you can see, you won't be seeing the list onto this. Okay. Even if you click it. So what we're going to do now is we'll be using what we call your AI. We'll be using this one. App Inventor tool to check the output of this component. So what I'll do now is, or what you need to do is to run this application. Okay. Then we'll be proceeding to connect and select emulator. So what will happen now is the application will initiate to open a new emulator. So that will be this emulator. So we'll be using this emulator to check the output of your mobile application. So you can do this in real time. So instead of building your application again and again, what you can do is just check the output. Okay. So we'll be waiting. We'll be waiting for it to finish. Okay. Okay, so after waiting for the setup to finish, so this is what you're going to see. So this is the emulator that we'll be using to test the mobile application that you're developing. So let's say for example, we've added your list picker. Okay, so we've added the options for your list picker. So we added strings. So I added strings for fruit names. So we have apple, mango, and banana. So I'll be selecting this button or I'll be clicking this button. So in this emulator, once you click this button, okay, so it will be showing you the list that you defined in here. So what, aside from the elements from string, what are the other configurations that you can use? So let's say for example, you can also change the typeface. Okay, so you can use serif, sans serif, or monospace. Okay, you can also change the height of your list picker. Okay, you have your item background. Okay, it is set to default black and the item text color is set default to white. Okay, so like the others or like the other example previously, you can also change the text or the label of your button. So let's say for example, we'll be changing it to fruit list. Okay, press enter, then it should be updated. So let's say for example, you want to add strings. Okay, so you want to add a fourth fruit. So let's say for example, we'll be adding an orange. To separate the items on the list, you need to add comma on your string. Okay, for it to be separated as a separate item on the list. So let's say for example, comma, then I'll be adding fruit, let's say oranges. Okay, we'll press enter, then we'll check your emulator. Okay, so click back and let's see if it's updated. I'll click the fruit list. Okay, then you'll see that the orange is already added onto your list. So aside from this picker, what are the other options that you can use, or what are the other components that you can use? So let's say for example, let's add a slider. Okay, so once you've dragged a slider, this is the icon for your slider. So what are the configurations that you can use or you can do this slider? So you can define its width. Let's say for example, I'll be using the option to fill parent. Okay, and click OK. So what it's going to do is it will be changing its width based on the size of your screen or based on the parent element that we have. So for example, that will be screen 1. So what it will be doing is it will be changing its width to match the width of your screen 1. So how does the slider work? So first that you need to do is you need to set a value or a max value or a minimum value. So let's say for example, we have the minimum value set to 10, then I'll be changing I'll be changing the max value to 100. Okay, so let's try to see. Okay, let's say for example, I'll select back. Okay, this is your slider now. So you can slide this thumb slider, okay, to define a specific value. So let's say for example, it is asking for your, let's say, um, level of happiness, okay, level of sadness. You can use this, okay, to get inputs from the user. Okay, aside from that, we also have your text box. Okay, so this is just a regular text box wherein you can type your text. Okay, so once you click the text box, the keyboard will pop up, then you can start typing anything. So most of the time, if you'll be asking inputs from the user, we'll be using this text box. Okay, now so let's continue. So aside from the user interfaces we also have your layout components. So layout components defines the structure for a user interface in your application. So basically, what it'll be doing is it will be defining the layout of your components, how they stack together. So for horizontal arrangement, components is used to display a group of components laid out from left to right. Then we also have your horizontal scroll arrangement, components formatting element in which place components that should be displayed from left to right. The only difference between the horizontal arrangement and the horizontal scroll arrangement is the horizontal scroll arrangement is scrollable. Then we also have table arrangement. Components is used to display a group of components in a tabular fashion. Then we also have your vertical arrangement. Components is used to display a group of components laid out from top to bottom, left aligned. We also have your vertical scroll arrangement. It is a formatting element which to place components that should be displayed one below another. So again, the main difference between vertical arrangement and vertical scroll arrangement is vertical scroll arrangement is scrollable. So out of these five, what is the most common layout component that we use? So that will be mostly the horizontal scroll arrangement because of the aspect ratio that your mobile phones use. Okay, so your mobile phones will have an arrangement wherein it has more of the height of the width. So meaning the contents will be displayed vertically. So now, how do we use your layout components? So we'll be proceeding back to your MIT app Inventor. So for now, I'll be deleting these components, okay? So in designing the user interface of your mobile application, before adding any user interface components, the first thing that you should do is you need to define the layout of your um, user interface. So let's say for example, I'll be adding a vertical scroll arrangement. Okay, so once you've dragged this onto your mobile application, it will be creating a small box in here. So, but if you'll be running the mobile application on your emulator, you shouldn't be able to see anything, okay? Because the vertical scroll arrangement doesn't show you anything. It only organizes the contents that you're adding on your mobile application. Now, so let's say, for example, let's create a simple login user interface. So, what are we expecting to be seeing in a login user interface? So, most of the time, what we'll be seeing will be text boxes. Okay, so let's say, for example, I'll be adding a text box. As you can see, you'll be seeing a blue line where the component will land. Okay, so I'll be placing my component inside my vertical scroll arrangement. So I'll be dragging this text box. Then you'll see on your component list, okay, the text box will be a child of the vertical scroll arrangement, meaning all of the components under the vertical scroll arrangement will be placed in a vertical arrangement. Okay, so let's say, for example, I'll be adding a second text box. Okay, this is your second text box now. Now, can you add multiple layout arrangements in a single screen or in a single mobile phone? Yes. Okay, so let's say, for example, instead of using vertical scroll arrangement, we'll also be using the horizontal scroll arrangement. So I'll be dragging this, okay? Then as you can see, we'll be having two layout arrangement in here. So we'll be having the same concept. We'll be adding two text box for horizontal scroll arrangement. So I'll be selecting user interface. I'll be adding this text box, and we'll be adding a second text box. Okay. Let me delete this one first. Okay, so this is the main difference between the two layout components. So if you're selecting vertical scroll arrangement, the components will be stacked on top or below of each other. Then if you'll be using horizontal scroll arrangement, you'll be seeing that your components will be placed horizontally. Okay, so if you need to design your mobile application, it's up to you what is the best layout arrangement that you can do. Okay, it will vary depending on the requirements or depending on what type of application you're going to do. Okay, just a reminder, before adding any user interface components, make sure to create a simple layout arrangement for your components. Okay, now what are the different properties that you can use or you can modify um, in here? So most of the time, what you're going to modify will be the height and width of your layout arrangement. So let's say, for example, you can change its height. As I mentioned earlier, you can use pixels or percent, or you can also use fill parent. Okay, the fill parent option. So let's say, for example, I'll be changing the width to match its parent. So I'll be selecting fill parent. Okay, click OK, then it will automatically be occupying all the width of your screen. Okay, now let's adjust its height. So from automatic, we'll be changing it to percent. So let's say we'll be adding 50% on your height, then it will be occupying 50% of the screen. Now you can easily add components in here. So let's say, for example, we'll be adding labels. Okay, so let's try to add labels. Okay, just a reminder, every time that you're adding components within the vertical scroll arrangement, all the components will be listed below. Okay. Okay, so that's it for your layouts. Now, what I'm going to do is we'll be proceeding with the media. So for now, I'll be deleting these components. Okay. Now for media, we have different types of components. So these are the different components under your media. So we have your camcorder. So it is a component to record a video using a device camcorder. Camera. It is a component used to take pictures on your phone. Image picker. Um, is a component that displays the device image gallery appears and the user can choose on the image. So player is a component that plays audio and controls your phone vibration. We also have sound. It is a multimedia component that plays sounds and optionally vibrates for the number of milliseconds specified in the blocks editor. We also have your sound recorder. It is a multimedia component that records audio. We also have your speech recognizer. Is a component that listens to the user speaking and convert the spoken sound into text using the device speech recognition feature. If I'm not mistaken, the speech recognizer component will be needing internet connectivity to function, same as with text-to-speech. Text-to-speech is a component that speaks a given text aloud. We also have video player. It is a multimedia component capable of playing videos. And we also have the Yandex Translate. It is used to translate words and sentences between different language. This component needs internet access. Okay, so let's proceed to the examples for media components. So for now, we'll be showing you how we're going to use some of the components under the media. So let's say, for example, what we'll be using for now is, first one is the image picker. Okay, so I'll be dragging it onto my screen. So what the image picker is going to do is, once you click this button, it will be opening your gallery. Okay, then aside from the image picker, we'll also be using the camera. Now, as you can see, for the image picker, you'll see that it will be listed on your component list and it will be shown on your mobile phone. Now, next one that I'll be using is a camera. I'll be dragging the camera onto my mobile application. But for this instance, okay, the camera will be added onto your component list, but it won't be listed or it won't be showed on your mobile application. Meaning, this type of component is a non-visible component. Okay, so it won't be shown on your mobile application. Now, so how we're going to do or how we're going to test this one? So to use or to show the camera, what we're going to do is we'll be adding a button. So what's the purpose of the button here? We'll be using the button to trigger the start of the camera. Okay, so we'll be proceeding next to the blocks. We need to configure some of the blocks for us to see how the camera can start. So the first one that you'll be going to do is first is select your camera. Okay, then what we're going to do is we'll be selecting this block when camera 1 that after picture or no. These are the different blocks that you can use for your camera. So the first one is when camera 1 after picture. Okay, we also have call camera 1, take picture, and camera. So what you'll be selecting for your blocks is this one, your call camera. I'll be selecting this block, okay. Then after that, what I'm going to do is I'll be selecting on the button. So what will be happening in here? What we want to do is when the user clicks on the button, we want to open the camera. So we'll be selecting a block that has the event click. Okay, so when button 1 is clicked, do something. So your blocks should look something like this. Okay, when button 1 click, do this. So what we're going to do, we'll be calling camera 1 to take the photo. So we'll be inserting this block, okay, within the when button 1 click. Okay, so this is your sample block that we will be needing to trigger your camera. Now, instead of using the emulator, okay, what I'll be doing is I'll be using my mobile phone. Okay, I'll be showing you the output on my mobile phone. So how I'm going to do that? I'll be using this application. This is what we call your A power mirror. Okay, so I have my mobile application or I have my mobile phone in here, so I can control and demo the screen that I have for my mobile phone. So I'll be testing the mobile application using this phone, and you can see the output, okay, in this A power mirror application. So first thing that I'll be doing is I need to build my application. I want to produce an APK. So what you're going to do is to produce the APK is to click on build and select app, then select the one that saves your APK to your computer. I'll be selecting this one. Okay, so what is going to do is it will be generating an APK. Okay, so after generating the APK, what we're going to do? What we're going to do is I'll be transferring the APK onto my phone's storage. Then I'll be installing the application onto the phone. Then we'll be testing what will be the output of your APK. So, okay. Alright guys, so let's continue. So after your MIT App Inventor compiled and build the mobile application, it will be starting to download the mobile application. So it will be producing an APK file. So in this particular scenario, we have sample app.apk. Now, so what we're going to do to test this application is we'll be using an actual mobile phone to test it. Okay, so how we're going to do that? So first is we need to place this APK onto your phone's storage. So what I'll do now is place the APK into my phone's storage. Okay, so here is the mobile phone. Okay, I'll be accessing its storage and I'll be placing the APK onto a folder within the mobile phone. Then next is what I'm going to do is I'll be showing you how I'm going to install the mobile application using this screen mirroring application. So I have my mobile phone in here. Okay, so it is mirrored using your A power mirror. for you to be able to see how I'm going to install the application and how I'm going to test the application. So for now, what I'm doing now is I need to install the mobile application. So as you can see, this is the mobile application that we've copied earlier. So I'll be installing this one. Alright, click install anyway. Then click open. Now, this is the sample of your mobile application. As you can see, for our mobile application, we have two buttons in here. One button for the image picker and another button for triggering your camera. So now let's test your mobile application. So first we'll be starting with your image picker. So I'll be clicking the button for the image picker. Okay, so there will be a pop-up regarding the phone's um, access privileges. So let's say, for example, the sample app will be requesting for access for my photos, medias, and files. Why? Because we've used your image picker, it will be opening your it will be opening your gallery. So the application will be needing permission to open your gallery or to have access on your photos, medias, and files. So for this demonstration, I'll be clicking OK. I'll click OK. Then what it will be doing is it will be opening applications that you can use to open the gallery or to open photos. I'll be selecting my photos application, then you'll see the galleries within my mobile phone. So you can access all the images that this mobile phone has. Okay, so that will be for your image picker. The next one that we have is for the camera. So as you can see, we've created a button, that will be the second button, that serves as a trigger to open your camera. So what I'm going to do now is I'll click the button for the camera. Okay, then it will also be requesting for access or privilege to take pictures and record video because we'll be opening a camera. So I'll click allow. Then what it'll be doing now is it will be opening your camera application. So what will be happening now is it will be triggering the opening of your camera. So as you can see, I'm already recording. Okay. Now you have your camera open. So that is how you're going to use your media components. So under media components, we have several components that you can use. Okay. So we have camcorder up until to the Yandex Translate. But for now, we'll only be using your camera and image picker. But later, we'll also be using your text-to-speech when we're demonstrating the sensors component. Okay, so we can proceed to the next categories. Okay, so aside from the media components, we also have your map components. So map components are components used to create maps and contents within the map. So these are the different components that we have under your maps. Okay, so the first one that we have is a circle. Circle component visualizes a circle of a given radius centered at a latitude and longitude. So latitude and longitude are the units of measurement that we are using, okay, to plot coordinates within the map. We also have feature collection component, groups one or more map features together. So any events that occur on a feature in the collection will also trigger the corresponding event in the collection component. We also have your line string. Line string component is a component for drawing an open continuous sequence of lines on a map. To add new points to a string, in the designer, drag the midpoint to any segment away from the line to introduce a new vertex. We also have the map. Okay? Map is a two-dimensional container that renders map titles in the background and allows for multiple marker elements to identify points in the map. Okay, then we also have what we call marker. So marker is a component that indicates points in the map, such as buildings or any points of interest. Markers can be customized in many ways, such as using custom images from the app's assets or by changing the markers fill color. So most of the time, we'll be using these markers, okay, to indicate a particular location within the map. It could be a building or it could be any location within the map. Then we also have navigation. It is a component that generates directions between two locations using a service called Open Route Service. Okay. We also have polygon. Okay. Encloses an arbitrary two-dimensional area on a map. Polygons can be used for drawing a perimeter, such as campus, city, or country. The last component that we have under maps is the rectangle. So rectangle components are polygons with fixed latitude and longitude for the north, south, east, and west boundaries. Now, so we'll be proceeding, okay, with map components. So let's go back to your MIT app Inventor. So for now, I'll be deleting the components that I've added previously. Okay, so let's try to create a simple map. So how we are going to create a map within MIT app Inventor. Okay, so for now, I'll be selecting maps. Okay, so these are the components that we can use under your maps component. So what I'm going to do now is before I add my maps, I'll be creating a layout. So let's say for example, I'll be adding a simple vertical scroll arrangement. Okay, I'll be modifying its width to match parent. Then I'll be changing the height to, let's say, around 70%. Okay. Okay. Now, so after adding the vertical scroll arrangement, now I'll be adding my map. Okay. So what we're going to do is we'll be selecting this map component and we'll be dragging it within the vertical scroll arrangement that we've created. Now, what we're going to do is we'll be adjusting the size of your map. So for this particular instance, what we're going to do is we'll be changing its height to fill its parent. Okay. Same as with the width to create a larger map. So as you can see, this is the default location where the map lands. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll be changing the location that we'll be seeing within this map. So what we're going to do is we need to modify, okay, the latitude and longitude of the map. So you can see that within this property, the center from string property. So to change this, we need to provide numerical values that represents the longitude and latitude of a place. So let's say, for example, let's Google the longitude and latitude of Mabalacat City. So let's search Google, Mabalacat City, longitude and latitude. Okay, so now Google will be providing the longitude and latitude. So we'll be copying this, okay? Then I'll be pasting them to the center from string. Okay? I'll first paste the latitude, then we'll be pasting the longitude. Okay? Then we'll click enter. Then as you can see, the map will be relocating you to Mabalacat City. Okay, so you can change the default location of the map or what the map shows by changing the center from string. Okay, now so aside from that, you can also create markers. So as we've mentioned earlier, markers are used to indicate particular locations within the map. Okay, so let's say for example, we're here in Mabalacat City. What we're going to do is we'll be placing a marker for Mabalacat City College. So how we're going to do that? First is you'll need to zoom in the map using your scroll on your mouse. Okay, then you need to navigate where is the location where you want to place your marker. So let's say for example, here is Mabalacat City College. What we're going to do now is we'll be dragging a marker in here. Okay, so let's say for example, I'll be creating a marker in here. Now, your marker will be placed on this particular location. Now, you'll see within the properties, okay, the MIT App Inventor will automatically be providing you with the latitude and longitude where you placed your marker. Okay, so aside from the longitude and latitude, you can also change the stroke color, okay, or the fill color for your marker. So instead of red, you can change it. Let's say you want to change it to green. Okay, so you can place multiple markers that will have different types of colors. Okay, so aside from your map components, we also have sensor components. So sensor components works with sensors mobile devices have or any hardware that you will be using. Okay, so let's say for example, we have the accelerometer sensor. It is a non-visible component that can detect shaking and measure acceleration approximately in 3 dimensions. We also have your background or barcode scanner. It is a component for scanning QR codes and getting back the resulting string. Barometer is a component that can measure the ambient air pressure if supported by the hardware. Mostly cell phones won't have barometers built in. So mostly you'll be using this sensor or you'll be using this component if you're working with IoT hardwares. We also have clock. It is a non-visible component that provides the instant time using the internal clock of the phone. Aside from the clock, we also have your gyroscope sensor. It is a component providing data from the device gyroscope sensor. So mostly your mobile phones will have this gyroscope sensor. Hygrometer. It is a physical world component that can measure the relative ambient air humidity if supported by the hardware. We also have light sensor. It is a physical world component that can measure the light level. We also have location sensor. It is a non-visible component providing location information, including latitude, altitude, speed, and address. We also have your magnetic field sensor. It is a component used to monitor magnetic field activity. Near field. It is a non-visible component that provides NFC capabilities. So NFC stands for near field communications. Orientation sensor. It is a component that determines the phone's spatial orientation. Pedometer. It is a component that keeps count of steps using the accelerometer. We have proximity. It is a sensor component that can measure the proximity of an object relative to the view of the screen of a device. Then we also have your thermometer. It is a physical world component that can measure the ambient air temperature if supported by the hardware. Now, how we're going to demonstrate the use of sensor components. Not all of these components are readily available for us, or the hardware are not readily available for us. So what we're going to do now is we'll be demonstrating how the accelerometer sensor works, or how are we going to use this sensor. So what we're going to do now is we'll be proceeding back to your MIT App Inventor. For now, I'll be deleting all the components that I've added previously. Okay. Now, so what we're going to do is we'll be creating a simple application that will be needing 3 components. Okay, so the first one that we'll be adding is under user interface. I'll be creating a simple text box. Okay, so for the text box, what we're going to do now for this application is we'll be adding text within the text box, and we'll be asking the mobile application to translate that text to audio or speech. Okay, text to speech. And we'll be using the accelerometer as the trigger. So as we shake the phone, your mobile application will be translating the text that is inputted using your text box. Okay, so for now, we'll be adding your text box. Then now we'll be adding your sensor. So what type of sensor are we using? We'll be using your accelerometer sensor. I'll be dragging it onto your mobile phone. So as you can see, it is a non-visible component, meaning you can see it on the user interface, but it will be listed under the components list. Okay. Now, aside from the accelerometer sensor, we'll also be adding the text-to-speech sensor. So we'll be proceeding with media. Okay. Then I'll be selecting this text-to-speech and I'll drag it onto my mobile phone. So same, the accelerometer sensor and text-to-speech sensor are both non-visible components. So what we're going to do now is we'll be proceeding to blocks. So we need to create simple blocks. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'll be selecting the sensor. Okay, so these are different blocks that we can use for your sensor. So what we're going to do now is we'll be using this block. When accelerometer sensor 1 is shaking do something or do this. I'll be selecting this block, okay? So the next thing that I'll be doing now is we'll be calling the text to speech, okay? So I'll select text to speech, okay? We'll be using this block. So call text to speech, speak a message, okay? So I'll be using this block and I'll be inserting it within this block. So what will be happening now is when accelerometer sensor is shaking, okay, so what will happen? It will call to text to speech and speak a message. So what type of message? We'll be selecting on your text box. Okay, so we'll be selecting text box dot text. Okay, we'll be selecting this one, text box dot text. Okay, we'll be selecting this box. Then we won't be modifying any of the text. So meaning this block will be getting the text that the user inputted on your text box, then it will be interpreted or it will be interpreted from text to speech upon once the accelerometer detected shaking on your mobile phone. So same procedure as earlier, we need to build this application. So we'll proceed to build, click app, save the APK to my computer. Okay. So same procedure, we'll be waiting for this build, then we'll be installing it on my mobile phone. Okay, so after the MIT App Inventor build and produce your APK, so same procedure as earlier. What we're going to do now is we need to transfer your APK, okay, onto the mobile phone's storage. So I'll be copying this APK file, okay, then I'll be pasting it to my phone's storage. So I'll be placing it under this folder. Okay, so after that, I'll be opening my mirroring app. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we'll be testing your mobile application. So first is we need to install the mobile application. So I'll be proceeding in the location where I've pasted my APK. So I'll be installing that application. Click install. Okay, then click install anyway. Now here is your mobile application. So for this mobile application, what you're only gonna see is the text box. So what we're going to do now is we'll be adding text that we want to be translated to speech. Okay. So let's say for example, hello world. Okay, we'll be adding the text hello world. Now, what we're going to do is we'll try to shake the mobile phone and let's check if our text will be translated to speech.
Hello world. Hello world. Hello world.
Okay, so I'm just shaking the phone.
Hello world.
Okay.
Hello world. Hello world. Hello world.
Okay. So the trigger for the text to speech is the shaking of the phone using the accelerometer. Okay, so that's a simple example on how you're going to use different types of component in order for you to create a mobile application. So for this instance, we've used three types of components. So we have a text box, we have a text-to-speech component, and we have your accelerometer sensor. Okay, so let's continue.